Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartia, and welcome to a special edition of TFR Insights, where we are going to talk about this is something I've been waiting for a long time. SUSE and Rancher Labs, they're coming together, and today we have with us Thomas Di Giacomo, Chief Technology and Product Officer at SUSE and Sheng Liang, founder of Rancher Labs, and now President of Engineering and Innovation at SUSE. Sheng, Thomas, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Swapnil.
So let's start with finally the acquisition has closed. What does it mean for SUSE? What does it mean for Rancher? What does it mean for the whole ecosystem? Because people were looking at this. So Thomas, I would like to start with you. What does it mean for the industry in general when you are bringing Rancher? I mean, they are massive open source players, especially in the Kubernetes space. And then, of course, SUSE, we don't even have to talk about the strength of SUSE. So let's talk about what does it mean for the industry in general, not just for SUSE or the ecosystem.
So let me start with the customers, actually. What does it mean for customers and people who can use those technologies together? And I think that means a lot to them where they can benefit from what SUSE and Rancher is doing today already. And what we will be doing in the future as well. And that means we are enabling them to have compute innovation anywhere from cloud data center at the edge, bare metal, VM containers, you name it in terms of infrastructure. Same thing at the application level as well. So I think that it means a lot from an industry standpoint and also from an open source standpoint. That's a great fit, right? That's a great match. What SUSE is doing is open source based always. What Rancher is doing is always open source based as well. So we are sharing that with the broader open source community and working with the ecosystem of open source technologies together. So that's going to also increase and expand what we can put together and the solutions we can develop and provide our customers with.
Sheng, if I talk to you, and I know you have been in space for so long, how do you see this combined forces mean for the industry? As we have spoken earlier also, the Rancher's focus was always on being kind of vendor neutral. So even if you are now part of SUSE, that doesn't mean that your customer should worry about. But it's going to have much more bigger impact on the industry. So I want to know from you, how do you see this joint forces going to have an impact on the industry?
Yeah, I think it's about continuing the open source innovation and then continue to bring out products for enterprise customers that enable them to go through the agile transformation. And there's just a lot of promising open source technologies. It's very clear the entire IT industry is driven by open source, and that's why I'm so excited that Rancher and SUSE decided to combine forces, because as Thomas said, you can't really find another company who's as well positioned, have as good track record, and have really, frankly, as much resources to continue to develop the kind of open source innovation, in computing infrastructure as SUSE can. And I think look at what we've accomplished. SUSE became the largest independent open source software company, after decades of work, and now with Rancher we have a much more complete product suite or technology stack. But what's different about SUSE versus our some of the other vendors in the space is we've always taken an open approach. We want to make sure we're not customers can always take best of breed from any layer in the technology stack. We don't want to lock people into a particular Kubernetes distro, and we're very, very open to supporting other Linux distros beyond SUSE. So I think it's really not just, at the end of the day, it's not just SUSE's unique ability to continue the innovation, but also our unique perspective in building a truly open source business that I think customers are going to benefit, and then I think it's going to have a lasting impact on the industry.
Right. There are a couple of things that I want to go deeper into. Of course, number one is about customers. Should Rancher customers be worried about this merger acquisition, however you want to call it? Because they, as you have been very flexible, they may be using a lot of technologies in addition to Ranchers, which compete with SUSE. So talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, SUSE is the largest independent open source company, but certainly there are other Linux distros out there, and our customers can rest assured that SUSE's approach has always been, the philosophy has always been, meet the customers where they are. We recognize open source is really all about choice and freedom. And lack of locking, so our products have to win on their own merits of the product, unique product capabilities, and also SUSE's unique capabilities to support and service our customers, and we're very confident about it. And so far, at least, in the last several months since the acquisition is announced, but before the acquisition is closed, we've talked to all the major Rancher customers, and none of them, the response has been extremely positive. None of them expressed any reservation about SUSE's commitment to true open source.
Right. Also, what does it mean for a lot of Rancher projects and products that also seem to overlap with a lot of work SUSE is doing? I mean, K3S is a good example. You also have a lightweight distribution based on Ubuntu images. Then SUSE has MicroOS and all those things. So talk about how, I don't know if it is too early, or if we can talk about what will happen with the either product integration or keeping them separately independent. How will they evolve?
Yeah, I mean, the acquisition is just closed. We're right in the midst of that right now. Obviously, before we get the full regulatory approval, in fact, what we can do or even plan in terms of product integration is actually fairly limited. But I knew going in it wouldn't be a big problem at all, because our whole perspective, think about SUSE and Rancher's whole perspective, is we're open. We view Kubernetes as a standard industry technology. And it's, as long as it's Kubernetes, from a Rancher perspective, we don't really care how Kubernetes is implemented. In fact, even in Rancher's history, we've transitioned at least 3 times in terms of our own Kubernetes distro. Early on, I think in Rancher 1.6, the 1.x, the very first version, we orchestrated Kubernetes actually using cattle. And then we moved to RKE, and then right now we're right in the midst of moving from RKE to RKE2, which is built on K3S technology, far more, just far easier to manage and far more capable. And SUSE has a very successful Kubernetes distro as well. And going forward, I think Rancher will be able to support it as is, and also figure out the strategy to migrate, transition, upgrade, customers to a standardized code base. So I'm not particularly concerned. Customers shouldn't be able to see any difference in terms of level of service or quality.
Let me just add to that, Swap, a little bit as well, and I fully agree. I mean that, and I look back at the SUSE history of supporting different type of open source technologies. I mean, we have a solution to manage Linux distributions, and it's not only managing SUSE Linux, it's managing about 10 to 20 different Linux distributions. We were supporting different types of hypervisors as well, from KVM, Zen, Hyper-V, vSphere, VMware stuff, PowerVM, and so that's always been the philosophy of SUSE as well, to, as Sheng mentioned, to meet customers where they are in terms of investments, what they need, what they have, where they are going, what makes sense for their use case and their needs, and we'll keep that. It's not because SUSE and Rancher comes together that we will change that, because that was the case for Rancher, that was the case for SUSE, and that's the case when we are together. Now, of course, we will also work and develop together and have engineers working on different types of technologies, from, I don't know, networking, container runtime, or putting some specific flavor of OS together where it makes sense as an additional choice for our customers, not to replace and try to enforce that to them, but when that makes sense because it brings value to them by putting things that we put together ourselves, right? So yeah, so we're not going to enforce anyone to move to a specific Linux Kubernetes distribution anytime soon. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, SUSE's story has always been, open source, or, work with partner. One thing more is that if we do look at after this, these joint forces, you guys are in the middle of the kind of the fourth industrial revolution that is going on. SUSE is very strong in HPC space, mission critical application. They all run on SUSE. Also, when we talk about cloud or cloud native, people say, hey, Kubernetes is the Linux of the cloud. No, the Linux of the cloud is still Linux. All the cloud, they run on Linux. So when you look at now, you have a Powerhouse with Rancher, which is Kubernetes, and then you also have Linux, and then SUSE. You have investment in Ceph, Cloud Foundry is there. So all the technologies that are going to reshape our future, you are sitting at the center of that. So what does this acquisition mean for the innovation that we should expect from SUSE? Because first of all, Thomas, you're back in your role as CTO, and Sheng, you are now going to lead the innovation there. So talk about that.
I mean, I'm tremendously excited about what SUSE Rancher as a combined company is able to offer. We are really the world's best place to develop innovative open source technologies. I fully believe that there really isn't another company with the same scale, same track record, same set of commitment, same culture, same breadth of offerings as SUSE. So it's tremendously exciting. And the market is huge because we all know the future of computing infrastructure is going to be built on open source, and open source plays very well with the modern way of running IT and DevOps, and completely aligns with cloud adoption, and also completely aligns with how computing is moving more from the data center out to the edge. So SUSE plays in all of these areas with very, very unique and differentiated and compelling products. So going forward, you should expect us to continue to double down on areas we truly differentiate, which is, as you said, highly reliable, highly adaptable, Linux distros. One of the other areas where we differentiate is the highly interoperable Kubernetes management system. We still have probably the industry's only Kubernetes management platform that can work with any Kubernetes distro and any Kubernetes service. We're not in the business of just promoting RKE or K3S. Just yesterday, Amazon recently announced the EKS distro, and Rancher is front and center supporting. Right, we absolutely want to meet customers exactly where they are, and then you should expect us, to continue our accelerating, in fact, our innovation in launching open source projects. Rancher was able to put ourselves on the map by creating innovative open source projects like Rancher, like K3S, like Longhorn, like Fleet, and you'll see you see that trend to continue. So I hope in the coming month I'll be able to come out and talk to you more about some of these new projects that we're about to launch. I'm really excited.
Thomas, we have talked about this earlier, a couple of times. So, can you tell what are the areas that you are looking at to further increase investment in innovating new things to help customers?
Yeah. So one thing that open source has done very well for the past decades, and even the more recent open source innovation, is to address generic use cases, right? And I think we can help customers, we can help different types of industries by focusing more on their specific needs without dropping the interoperability, the scale, the security, and the enterprise readiness of open source. So we're looking and I mean, there are different ways to define verticals and use cases and industries, right? But like retail, like there are things that makes a lot of sense for them to use, and we are working with some partners, with some end customers on their specific needs. I think we can, as an industry, open source can do a better job at customizing itself without, again, losing its strength, right? But customizing itself to be better at addressing specific needs. And that's something we've studied at SUSE, and that's something that Rancher does as well. And that's something I can see that we accelerate in the future as well, from telcos and also some of the edge use cases in different types of industries are healthcare as well, where we can help them even further by bringing open source closer to them than just the open source technologies as they are by themselves.
One question I have, we have talked about this earlier, but we did not have any concrete answer last time because of this pending approval. What will happen to Rancher Lab as a brand? Because Rancher has a very strong presence in the market. So will all the Rancher services or product, they will become renamed branded, or it will have its own identity within SUSE?
Yeah, Rancher brand would stay. I mean, of course, it's going to be SUSE Rancher, just like Microsoft Azure. So, but the Rancher brand stays on, the logo stays on. So I don't think folks have to worry about that. The product will obviously continue to be called Rancher.
I'm excited to see some exciting videos because SUSE is really good at those marketing videos with cow grazing in the green field and dragons and all. We'll see. Yeah, so that will be a good branding. Thomas, Sheng, first of all, it's good to see you both in the same frame. I wish we did it in person so we could have also gone for be in a party to celebrate this. Joining forces of two great companies that I love personally. It's really good it's really a good ending of the year. So once again, thank you for taking time out today and talk to us about this acquisition and what these two companies will look like together. So once again, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Sheng.
Thank you, Swapnil. See you in 21.
Thank you.